into the blue. It's out there waiting, it could be waiting for you. You're only scared of the things that you can't see. The most beautiful things you only see in your dreams. It's all a mystery, an untold story, a blank page waiting for a line, a metronome just marking time. And now you stand right at the edge, where you're going, where you've been. The only certainty is you and the blue. And the blue. Sail away till you can't see. A speck of land or the person you used to be. A place where you can't hear what they all say. And all the pain and the shame of the world fall away. It's all a mystery, an untold story, a blank page waiting for a line, a metronome just marking time. And now you stand right at the edge, where you're going, where you've been. And the only certainty is you and the and the blue. And the blue.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kurt Saxon, and I'm your practitioner here on the Sunday morning service at the Hilltop Center. I'd like to welcome you all. If it's your first time here, we are grateful that you are coming to visit us, and that we want you to know that you belong here. And for the rest of you who I haven't seen in what seems like forever, I miss you. I know we will be getting back together soon. And so I'd just like to start this morning off with prayer. And so what I recognize in this moment, that the divine is operating through all that is coming forth in the service this morning, through Reverend Guy's words and the music of our musicians, and through my words. And that even though we are not together, we are still all united in that one presence that exists within myself and exists within each of us. So I am just truly grateful for this time this morning and its unfoldment and all that is wanting to come forth. And we just open our arms and we just fall into that embrace of love, that awakening to the energies of love, allowing it to consume us, to purify us. And so I just am truly grateful for this opportunity this morning to be of service and to pray, and for all of you. I'm just truly grateful. And so with this, I give thanks and I release these words into that infinite-minded God, knowing that it is spoken, it is all done, and so it is. And so our reading today comes from Thomas Merton, New Seeds of Contemplation. The only true joy on earth is to escape from the prison of our own false self and enter by love into union with the life who dwells and sings within the essence of every creature and in the core of our own souls. In his love we possess all things and enjoy fruition of them, finding him in them all. And thus, as we go about the world, everything we meet and everything we see, hear, and touch, far from defiling, purifies us and plants in us something more of heaven. And so it is. And now I invite you to join me in a short journey. And I invite you to just settle into your seat and bring your focus to your breath and just notice the inhale and the exhale. Feel your heart beating as you breathe. And now just quiet your mind and release any thoughts or concerns that may be troubling you, and just focus on this present moment. And now I invite you to bring the image of a pathway, and you are walking down it. The warm sun is on your face, and a gentle breeze blows through your hair as you walk. And as you continue walking, you find the path takes you to a beautiful botanical garden. And you walk through an archway into the garden. It is full of flowers, plants, birds, butterflies, dragonflies. And as you stroll along the garden pathway, you notice the intoxicating smell and the radiance of it all. And you feel light and open. You feel love. You see beauty. You don't judge the shape and placement of every flower and leaf. You don't judge the song of the birds. Just notice the leaves and the flowers are of all shapes and sizes and face every which way. That's what makes them beautiful. What if you felt that way about people? What if they were like flowers and leaves, and however they happened to be seemed beautiful to you? For to differentiate is to judge, but to see, to experience, and to honor is to participate in life instead of standing back and judging it. And so I invite you to know with me that in each moment you are looking at the world with the loving eyes of God. And so it is.
Hello and welcome. I want to thank Kurt Saxon for that beautiful invocation that he did today, and also for that truly magical guided meditation, and for that inspired reading from one of my favorites, Thomas Merton. I also want to thank Alice Wallace for her beautiful song that in many ways kind of was an inspiration for the talk that I'm giving today. So there's a line in it to the effect where she says, what stands between you and the deep blue, the great blue, that great opportunity for where things are. And this month we're in a conversation about awakening to the energies of love. And I think awakening to the energies of love is luring us into this new paradigm. I've talked before about this spiritual path, or this spiral that is an evolution, and it's also the journey of the soul, something that Richard Rohr talks about order, disorder, and reorder. And order was what we knew, what was predictable. And imagine that it was only a couple months ago, right? That things were sort of plodding along how they were. And now we've been thrown into this disorder where everything is up for grabs. And so instead of thinking about how we return to normal, we should be asking ourselves, how do we reorder? And how are we lured into a new possibility of things? What I want to share today is maybe one way of holding this new imagination is how we awaken to the energy, to the power, to the inspiration, to the call of love itself. Ernest Holmes was one of the great New Thought teachers. He actually was the founder of the particular denomination that the Hilltop Spiritual Center affiliates itself with. In 1922, he wrote the original Science of Mind text, and he begins it with this statement. And of course, we're reading something that was written in 1922, so please excuse the male prefaces or pronouns and the he's and the she's that are kind of in this reading. If we can look beyond that, there's an essence to something that he says here. And he says, if we trace man's history back into the dim past, we should come to a place where he did not consciously know himself. We should come to a place where instinctive man alone existed, for self-conscious man had not yet evolved. And so the question is, how did we make the leap? What was the mechanism by which we were able to move from simply living at an instinctual level to a more conscious level, a more reflective level, trusting other things than simply our instincts? And I think one way of going to that, or how I would like to answer that, is to go to a quote from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. And look at that, I've been almost 3 minutes into this talk, and there he is again, Pierre Teilhard, my spiritual hero. But this is probably one of his most known quotes. You've probably heard it before. You've certainly heard it from me. And he says this, he says that someday, after mastering the winds, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for a second time in the history of the world, we shall have discovered fire. And so the question is, what about the first discovery of fire? Because I believe therein lies the mechanism. Therein lies the bridge. That's where the leap happened. Because somewhere, somehow, probably close to almost 2 million years ago, one of our early ancestors went against his instinct and carried fire home and harnessed it. And they worked with it. And it changed everything. It was a brand new paradigm, because it was a turning point. From a technological point, things began to happen differently. When there was cold, they were able to provide warmth. They were able to provide protection from predators. They were able to begin to advance their tool making and their hunting implements. They were able to stay active when it was cold and when it was dark. And even beyond the technological, it was the social and mental and eventually spiritual evolution that came in. And again, think about this. For the first time, instead of huddling after dark in a cave or in a bush or under a tree, they were able to stay up, to engage. There's a direct connection between the development or the harnessing of fire and of language. They began to think, to reflect, to contemplate. Have you ever gone camping or built a fire in your backyard, or even at the fireplace? You know, it's the fireplace, the hearth, the center of the home. It's a very contemplative place, but it's also the place where stories are told. So it's an advancement of so many things. And so it makes sense to me that whether from the east or the west or primal spiritual traditions or more refined spiritual traditions, isn't it interesting that fire is often attributed to the divine itself, or certainly an aspect of the divine? Because it kindles an imagination. It awakens something in us. Gaston Bachelard, in his book, The Psychoanalysis of Fire, yes, he wrote a book about the psychoanalysis of fire. He says this. He says that the imagination works at the summit of the mind, like a flame. The imagination works at the summit of the mind, like a flame. Picture that. You know, I mean, even in images of yogic traditions or the chakra or energy or PowerPoint traditions, you know, the crown is seen like a flame. There's this burning energy that is happening there. And it awakens within us an imagination. And the beauty of the imagination is this. I think it's, in many ways, it's probably the single most organ that connects us to the divine. Because through the imagination, we are able to give meaning to events that happen in the past, that begin to direct our activities in the present. Through the imagination, we are able to picture or create events that aren't within our own mental framework, that may not have even been experienced by us. But we're able to see them, create with them, mental images, tell stories about them, and direct our conscious mind toward the advancement towards those directions. Emile Coué, who is considered the father of the placebo effect, he was an apothecarian in the late 19th, early 20th century, or what we would call a pharmacist. He used to say this. He says that when the imagination and the will are at odds, the imagination will always override the will. And think about that in your own personal life, right? If you're trying to will something, but you're imagining something different, you're always going to follow the imagination. My teacher used to say that the imagination lays the tracks for the reality train to follow. And I think for us then, maybe a question to ask ourselves is, and maybe a question for you to ask yourself is, how do you imagine yourself? How do you see yourself? What is the story that you tell about yourself? You know, Kurt in his reading today is quoting an American mystic, one of my spiritual heroes, Thomas Merton, who talks quite a bit about the false self. And he says this, he says that the only true joy on earth is to escape the prison of our false self and enter into love and union with the life, or life itself, that all-pervading beingness. It is divine and it is real. And what he also goes on to say is this, he says, why do we strive so hard to become something that we don't want to be? Why do we work so hard in becoming or achieving something that isn't even anything that we even really want? I'm forgetting his name right now, James Martin, who is a Jesuit priest and he's an author, says this in a book that he writes about Martin. He says, with his typical insight, Merton identifies the false self as the person that we wish to present to the world and the person we want the whole world to revolve around. So it's that ego part of ourself that tells these stories to us and to others about how great and how fabulous or how pitiful or awful or whatever the story that we tell ourselves. Again, my teacher used to say that that victims are tyrants in drag. You know, it's just another way of sort of organizing the situation. They're just portrayals of the false self. And the false self comes from an innate belief that we hold about ourselves. And maybe there's a different way for us to look at ourselves. And for me, there's a hint in that with the ancient Hebrews, because you know they had a whole different thing. When you look at their creation myths, which are truly elegant and wonderful, there's a sense in there, and that is this, is that the very essence of who we are at the end of the day, or before anything else, is that we are good. We are made in the imagination. We are made in the image and the likeness of the divine. And so the core of who we are, before anything else about us is that we are good. And when we hold that, when we practice that, when we sit with that idea that the very essence of who I am, and the very essence of the person sitting next to me, and the very essence of every living thing is good, we begin to embrace our authentic self, that who we have come to be. And when we begin to understand that, then we begin to open to or awaken to the energies of love. And the thing about love is this, is the love that I'm talking about is not a feeling. Love is not a feeling. It's a force. It's a power. It's a great power. The power of love initiates a complete change in mind. The power of love initiates a complete change in everything, because love is way more interested in the good than it is about winning. It celebrates and welcomes diversity of every kind because it understands the evolving nature of the universe and that it's becoming more and more complex. Love is curious. Think about someone that you love. You're curious about them. You want to know what they know. You want to understand what they like so you can provide for them, so you can anticipate. You want to know what kind of movies they like, what kind of food they like, what their favorite song is. And why you want to know these things is not for as a weapon, but to provide, because love wants to bring joy to the other. And the other thing about love is this, is that it's always moving towards a greater experience of unity. Because what love understands is this, is it understands the law of holism, which means that everything is interconnected to everything else. And so it strives for the good of the all and not for the chosen few. Love understands that we're all in this together. And so, again, if we think about awakening to the energy of love, of how it is like discovering fire for a second time, it's a game changer. Imagine what our world would be like, our economic system, our environmental system, if love was the directive. But to make it even more personal, think for a second. Think for something that you're grappling with, maybe a decision that you have to make, a choice between one thing or another, or some place where discernment is an important thing. And just ask this simple question. What would love do? What would love do? Love, which is kind, which is generous, which is expansive, which is giving, which is way more interested in the good than immediate gratification. And so when we understand that as individuals, and it ripples out to our family and our tribe, imagine a nation that was grounded on the value of love, to be curious, to be expansive, to be knowing. And again, imagine a world where love was the fire that changes everything, reflecting again on the words of Teilhard, that someday after mastering the winds, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love, and for a second time in the history of the world, we shall have discovered fire. And so let us take a moment to pray, to hold in our consciousness, in our heart, in our imagination, the fire of love descending into us, recognizing that the very essence of this vast cosmic unfoldment is love. For God is love. And all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be is love. We awaken to love and we awaken to our true self. And in our true self, we connect, we expand, we grow. We allow love to be the North Star and the guiding light in our life in all that is, in all that will be. And so it is. Thank you once again for joining us. I want to thank Alice Wallace for her musical gift that she gave us this morning. In advance, I want to thank Spirit Hill for their rendition of These Are the Days. I want to thank Kurt Saxon for his beautiful reading and meditation and invocation today. And he, like all the practitioners, are available for prayer or counsel. His number and all other contact for all the other practitioners is available on our website. And when you visit our website, please know that there is also opportunities for music videos. If you like today's videos, they're available. If you like today's meditation or any of the other meditations, they're available. If you like the talk today or any of the other talks, those too are available. There's also more music, more meditation, poetry, yoga classes. All these are available to you, as well as our daily Monday through Friday prayer circle on Zoom. The contact information for all of that is there. I also want to thank our staff who continues to work diligently, both here at the center, well actually I'm not at the center, both at the center and in our virtual community, Diana and Michelle, who have just been fabulous during this time. And again, thank you. Thank you for your continual and generous support. Thank you for liking us on Facebook. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. Thank you for letting your friends know in all these ways. And again, if you choose to give today, we are grateful. And there are ways that you can do this. You can go to our website and there you'll find Donor Box or PayPal or the address of our center where you can mail checks. These are interesting times, are they not? We are in this together. We will look back on these times and we will say, these were the days. These were the days that we learned to love in a new way. These were the days when we learned to build community in different ways. These are the days when we reflect on what are the most important things in our life. Love, of course, those who we give and receive love from, and our spiritual community, and how we grow, and now that we are international. Many, many, many blessings to you and your family, to those you give love and receive love from. I look forward to seeing you soon, and we'll see each other again in this virtual world next Sunday. Many, many blessings.
These are the days. Oh, these are days you'll remember. Never before and never since. I promise, will the whole world be warm as this? And as you feel it, you'll know it's true, that you are blessed and lucky. It's true that you are touched by something that will grow and bloom.